potentially only be some sort of a preview to the campaigns to come. And we do want to cross now back to I-24 News correspondent Hamda Salhout with an update on this recent barrage of rocket from Syrian territory this time around. Hamda, what can you tell us?
Ellie, this breaking news just in. Initial reports suggesting that 3 rockets were fired from Syria, 1 landing in Syrian territory, 1 landing in Jordan, and 1 landing in Israeli territory. The IDF says that an alert was activated on the Homefront Command app earlier in the Mossad. Initial reports did say 2 rockets, but we are now learning of 3. This should not come as a surprise, actually, to those who understand the geopolitics of the region when it comes to how Iran has entrenched itself within Syria, within Lebanon, and within the militant factions of Palestine. The Iranians are working in a sort of network that the Israeli apparatus says sponsors these groups. Also, let's not forget that both Iran, Hezbollah, the Lebanese, the Syrians, all of them are in solidarity with the Palestinian resistance movement. They all say that they are willing to work with the Palestinians. Hamas speaking earlier this week, saying that the Palestinian struggle is one of all Muslims and one of all Arab nations. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that those in Syria, whether they're Palestinian factions, whether they are Iranian militias, whether they are anything else, felt emboldened after this week of rocket fire from Lebanon, from the Gaza Strip, the Israeli security apparatus raising its alert this week. All eyes will be on Jerusalem tomorrow and for the rest of the week to see how the tensions within the region will develop. We do also know that Israel regularly carries out strikes in Syria, but they do not comment on that activity. Israel says that they target Iranian military posts, those of Iranian militias or Iranian-backed separatists, but they do not comment on that activity. Now, they attack those targets because those targets are transferring weapons often through the Damascus and Aleppo airports in order to try and arm their rebels, which is ultimately for the demise of Israel. A lot to keep an eye on this week, the security situation constantly developing in the region. Ellie.
So, Hamda, earlier you've been reporting that you're obviously in constant contact with your sources in Jerusalem, and we are expecting another long night at the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. That, as you've just said, all eyes from the entire region are very much focused there.
That is correct. Tonight, those sources did tell me that they do plan to stay the night in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, according to the Jordanian Waqf, they do not have a problem with this. They released a statement saying that all Palestinian and Muslim worshippers are allowed to stay the night in this compound as part of what is called as I'tiqaf, which means to spend the entire night in prayer leading up to dawn. Muslims regularly engage in this practice during the year, but especially throughout the holy months of Ramadan. And clashes, violence at the Al-Aqsa is nothing new. So those people are going in tonight prepared for the possibility of something happening. Parallel to that, the Israeli side is just as prepared and just as certain that something could ultimately happen. This is a flashpoint site that we know every Ramadan the violence tends to erupt there because of the continuing violence, the continuing stress on the people, the continuing attacks, people taking matters into their own hands, like we've seen over the last 24 to 48 hours, several attacks within Israel in the West Bank. So we're going to have to see what happens tonight. But this breaking news now, 3 rockets out of Syria, 1 landing in Israeli territory, 1 landing in Jordan, 1 falling short into Syrian territory. And we are also hearing some news that those rockets were reportedly fired by pro-Iranian Shia militias based in Syria. As I was stating before, the Iranians have a strong grip in Syria, and their weapons transports continue. The recruiting of forces there continues. Iran is proving that it is a force to be reckoned with. It is trying to change the status quo within the world, change that policy of Western deterrence, and change how the world views the Middle East as a whole.
Yes, definitely. And the recent rapprochement deal with Saudi Arabia only further indicates about the Iranian bid to change the regional and global power struggle, if you will. I-24 News senior correspondent Hamda Salhoud, thank you very much for this. And let's cross now live to I-24 News senior defense correspondent Jonathan Regev with more information. Jonathan, what are we learning about this fresh barrage of rockets from Syrian territory?
The IDF now confirming that the three launches were detected in Syrian territory, one of them crossing into Israeli territory, landing in open area, one more apparently landing within Syria, one more landing in Jordan. That is what we're hearing. In the past, say, 4 or 5 days, we've been speaking mostly about rockets from Gaza, Lebanon. Let's remember, before that, we spoke mostly of the fact that Israel held, if I remember correctly, 3 attacks within Syrian territory in the space of less than a week. Right. Therefore, and Iran said, we will find the right time, the appropriate time to retaliate. And basically, I think there's some concern that eventually Iran may retaliate. And as it seems, they now did. This is their way to retaliate. They said all along that this will not go by quietly. In some of those Israeli attacks, which we spoke about earlier, Iranian personnel were killed. And the Iranians, as opposed to what they usually do, did not hide it at all. All the opposite. They made it public that Iranian personnel were killed. Images, videos of grieving families were shown on Iranian state television. And this perhaps showing that Iran was choosing this time to retaliate. Israel usually keeps quiet about these attacks, so does Iran. So as not to give anyone the context to retaliate, Iran, by publicly saying that its personnel was hit, and in Iranian state television they said that it's the evil Zionist enemies, that's what they said. Therefore they pushed themselves to retaliate. This may be what has happened this evening. And
Jonathan, before we let you go, as again it is all happening as we speak, are we hearing anything from the Home Front Command as for instructions for Israelis on the border area there up north?
Not for the moment. It doesn't seem to be the case, at least not now. Let's remember this information surfaced less than 10 minutes ago. Yeah. I would say that probably no. But just to add another layer of concern, not only Lebanon, not only the West Bank, not only Gaza, not only Israel proper, now Syria itself, every possible front is igniting.
Yes, indeed, and we are, thank you very much, I-24 News Senior Defense Correspondent Jonathan Regev for this update. Brigadier General on the Reserves, Amir Avivi, in the really 30 seconds we have left. As Jonathan Regev just pointed out, yet another front to an already very much existing fire.
Well, it needs to be checked who shot, whether it's Palestinian faction, whether it's Hezbollah or Iranians. So we need to wait and see, but definitely we need to build back our deterrence, and fast.
If there's a bottom line, this is it, no doubt about that. Brigadier General in the Reserves, Mr. Amir Avivi, thank you very much for this. This is it from the I-24 News Desk for now, but you can always stay updated by following us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're there or online, of course, at 24news.tv. We're continuing to bring you all the latest information on this extremely sensitive security situation here throughout Israel on multiple fronts. And just to recap this breaking news, 3 rockets launched from Syria into Israel.